when we saw this happen yesterday as we were on the set preparing for Football Night in America, Chris on the set in Stamford, Connecticut, me on my set here in West Virginia, we all felt it. It was palpable. The air went out of the room, and we were minutes before going on the air live on NBC when Dak Prescott suffered a gruesome and grotesque compound fracture dislocation of the ankle. On the same day Alex Smith ended his 2-year journey back to the NFL after a serious compound leg fracture, it happened to Dak Prescott. And these things are incredibly rare, especially for quarterbacks, Chris. And it really was a moment I'll never forget because I could just feel it even from here. I could feel the air go out of the room in Connecticut. I felt like I was punched in the stomach. Everybody loves and respects and admires Dak Prescott, and to have that happen to him yesterday was as stunning a moment as I can remember in 50 years of following football.
Yeah, it hurt. It was shocking. It really was. Like you said, it was like Alex Smith. It was like watching Joe Theismann back in the day because you just went, oh my gosh. First off, quarterbacks maybe a little bit more personable than other positions because they're brought into our home more often than everything else, through TV, commercials, everything like that. But then, you worry about the guy first. And Dak Prescott, just being around him the few times I have been the last few Super Bowls, couldn't like him more. You can understand why everybody talks about him in such a glowing fashion throughout the Cowboys organization. So it hurts from that standpoint. And there's so many things to unpack from this because of Dak's franchise tag and all of that. But at the base level, yeah, you hurt for a guy that, yes, is making a big paycheck this year, but was really close to really making some serious money. And I've been there, and I've been in his shoes that way, and it's devastating. I think that's probably part of the reason you saw him break down in tears even more on the golf cart. I feel like all the reality hit him, like, damn, franchise tag, I could have maybe signed for this money and everything. I'm not trying to be insensitive by any of this, but it just all comes to head.
I don't think he's thinking about that in that moment.
Man,
I don't think he's thinking about that in that moment.
Okay.
I think, look, when your leg is that messed up and you know what you have in front of you, and also you recognize, and I don't know how much he processes this, but the reality is you have and I don't even know he's aware in the moment that the break is so bad that it actually pierces through the skin. That's a serious situation. That's what happened to Alex Smith. And that's when, and look, I'm no doctor, but when you live this long enough and you hear what doctors have to say, team doctors, experts in the field, when that bone bursts through the skin and the bacteria and other stuff that is on our skin at all times gets inside of your body where it is not supposed to be, that creates a very real risk. And they need to be sure. And one of the things they were doing last night, cleaning the wound thoroughly and completely as they also repaired the compound fracture and the dislocation to keep infection out. And that is the challenge going forward. The surgery deemed a success. Dak expected to leave the hospital today, which is almost as stunning as the injury itself. I thought maybe he would be there for a little while. He was there straight after the injury happened. His brother posted the picture. Dak in good spirits, and now will be recovering at home when he's released later today. But it is a serious situation. And I think that the biggest reaction in that moment, number one, everything you've worked for and prepared for is done in the fifth game. You're going away from your teammates. They're going to have to try to win football games without you, and you feel like you're letting them down. I feel like that may be the prevailing emotion in that moment, Chris. I mean, you went through that, although you were probably unconscious for a lot of it. But I think when the dust begins to settle, the big reaction and the big thought and the strongest emotion is you've in some way let your teammates down.
Well, it all just piles on. It's like that's why I was saying, like, that's why I felt like that probably went through his head. I wasn't trying to go like insensitive there or anything like that, but it just all comes to this boiling point of like, you're in shock, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm hurt like this. This is unbelievable. Oh man, I'm not going to be able to play football anymore. Man, I'm not going to be around the teammates anymore. Oh, man, how long is it going to take me to come back from this injury? All of that goes into your brain, let alone what does this do to my career? It all comes. It's like a crazy nightmare or whatever, a dream. You know how you wake up and you're like, man, it just was just little flashes of things that went through my brain real quick. It's kind of like that, and it's just it is going to be a long road back for him. But he's a guy that we know can handle this, and it's just we hope it's not so serious and that the surgery went well, like you said, to where he can get back to rehab and get back to somewhat normal Dak Prescott once again. And how long that takes, I don't know. But, yeah, Mike, when he went down, just from that sideline view, right away you knew something was wrong. And it was like one of those things where you were like, man, that didn't look right the way he went down. And then you kind of saw the leg. And then, of course, we got the close view, and you were like, whoa, that's not straight there. That's not good. And I can't burn that image out of my head right now for poor Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
And I never want to see it again. And when I rewatch that game, I'm going to skip that part. There's no reason to see it. There's nothing to be gained by seeing it. And I didn't mean to suggest you were being insensitive about what he's feeling to the extent that there's a financial aspect. But you're right. That notion of his contract, it's always been there. It never goes away. It's been there with him more so than any other quarterback or player really in recent years. That's been so much the focal point of the talk. And it really is that blender where it all is thrown together. It all comes together in one moment. Everything he's endured on the field, off the field. This stare down with the Cowboys that he was successful at. Even though he still didn't get a long-term contract, I still think he did the right thing, and I think he was successful, and we'll be talking about that in a minute. But the overwhelming feeling, and I agree with you in that specific moment, all those things coming together, and now he has to move forward. And we'll see how it goes. We don't know what the prognosis is. We always hear that the surgery is a success, and at some point we'll hear his recovery's ahead of schedule. But we get numb to it because it's not part of our lives, because next man up and the game keeps going, and we forget about Dak Prescott, just like we forgot about Ben Roethlisberger last year. We forgot about Cam Newton last year. People just move forward with football, and it's out of sight, out of mind, and we know at some point you'll be back in sight, back in mind. But Dak Prescott's not going to be out of mind. He may be out of sight. We'll probably see him on the sidelines at games. I suspect he will be around as much as he can. But Dak Prescott he's beloved throughout the NFL for everything he's done on and off the field, and it's not going to be, I think, like other guys where we just forget about him and move forward.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not. He is. He's got too good of a personality. Everybody's seen how good his heart is, everything like that. I think also where everybody feels is like to the point you brought up. This is a conversation that's been going on for 2 years. He was a fourth-round pick. He came out of Mississippi State. He's never made that big-time first-round type money. And, yeah, it's big money he made this year. But, there was other money dangled in front of him that was life-changing that way. And, Mike, I'm going to go back to one other thing that just, is my pet peeve. And I just wish this would get changed. And that's the field turf. I sit there again and go, field turf, all right? I've had this conversation with my dad and a few other players lately. Just it's the foot gets stuck in field turf because guys wear cleats too, and we're not used to seeing these type of injuries with quarterbacks. But Dak is a different type of quarterback. He's a bigger guy who, yes, will run, will have people on his shoulders and throw them off and do things like that, to where other quarterbacks just fold and fall down. And the big thing is this: injuries usually happen to running backs, receivers, people like that. But I just, again, that's one of my issues. I don't know if I feel like these injuries happen as much or as egregiously as they do maybe if we were on just regular grass fields once again. Sorry.
And, well, this is a topic that's come up on several times in recent weeks, that foot does get caught and
can't get out.
When it's just – It is still amazing to me when an incident like this happens. I take a step back and I say, I'm amazed it doesn't happen more often.
Right.
I'm amazed it doesn't occur when all that cluster of huge bodies is just churning, and all the opposing forces. And at what point does a bone break? At what point does something give way? And it is so much more visible when it's a compound fracture than when it's a torn ACL. Tony Dungy was making this point last night, that with a torn ACL, you never see it. You see that the player has a problem with his knee.
Yeah.
But the knee still looks like a knee. The leg still looks like a leg. And I think that makes it so much harder for the rest of us to just deal with when we see that kind of a graphic injury. And you're right. At what point does the field turf become a factor? And at what point do the owners recognize that for the multi-million-dollar investment they make in players, in a payroll that this year is kissing $200 million, just south of $200 million, is there not a better way?
Yeah, right.
To ensure that your investment is protected, even if you don't want to think of your players as human, even if you become completely desensitized to the constant churning. The longer you own a team, the more you know the names and the faces are going to change. What stays the same is the team. What stays the same is the helmet and the uniform. We change the names on the back of the jerseys all the time. But still, to the extent that those individuals are employed by you, whether it's 1 year, 10 years, or somewhere in between, you should want to get the most out of those players. You should want to ensure that they're as safe as possible when they are playing on the field that is in the stadium that you own. And that's the one thing, Chris, that I'll never understand about the NFL, why they don't take every possible precaution and spend every possible dollar to make sure that their players are as safe as possible on the surfaces on which they play.
Yeah, well, no, I don't understand that either. And the numbers show it. I mean, injuries are 30% more on field turf than grass. Ankle and knee injuries, I think it's even a more staggering number than that. It's something like I can't remember exactly right off the top of my head, but yes, that is the issue. It is a synthetic grass. There's rubber pebbles in it, and you wear real cleats that you would wear on a grass field, and it just does not give the same way, and the foot can get stuck, and I don't understand it either, Mike. I mean, yeah, the NFL, the owners, it's more, I think, about the fact they want the field turf because of the events they want to have in the offseason, the concerts and everything like that, to where that'll ruin the grass and do all that. I just wonder, do they come out on end out of that when, okay, yeah, you're paying Dak Prescott $31 million and you're not going to get all the services for that money, let alone, all the guys that get hurt that you have to re-sign on your roster and then also get hurt. The money wasted on that every year through some of these injuries, I really would. I would wonder what, it is or how much it's making a difference in these owners' lives and the final, bank number there.
Yeah, I mean, that really is the point. Even if the humanity of the situation does not affect you as an elderly person who has owned a football team for 30 years, and they have come and they have gone and they will come and they will go until it's time for you to go, you're losing the benefit of $31.4 million
right
in services for the balance of the year. And if you had grass on that field, who knows what would have happened. And that's an unfortunate aspect of all of this. Dak Prescott does make $31.4 million this year, fully guaranteed. It's funny how we get so caught up in the nuances and we understand the details. The average fan, when something like this happens, will say, does he still get paid? Well, yes, he does. His contract is guaranteed for skill, injury, and cap. He gets every penny of the $31.4 million. The bigger question is, what happens next year?
Yeah.
And there are three options, and it's all going to be influenced, Chris, by what happens over the course of the next several months. They will have until late February. Now, they can't begin negotiating a contract until after the season ends. From there until late February, long-term deal for Dak, or if that doesn't happen, franchise tag deadline arrives. Will they use the tag again? And remember this, it's $37.68 million for next year. And the salary cap may be as low as $175 million. And that number is still $37.68 million by rule, unless they would change the rules of the franchise tag between now and the arrival of next year's franchise tag window, which is highly unlikely. He gets a 20% raise over what he made this year, $37.68 million.
Right.
What do you do then?
Ooh.
Do you let him hit the open market at that point? Does he become a free agent? Do you wait to see what someone else is willing to pay him before you offer him a contract? This could be like the Cam Newton situation with a twist, where the Cowboys consciously assume the risk that someone else will pursue him, hopeful that no one else will pursue him coming off of that injury. And you know what? If the pandemic is raging again, how can anyone pursue him? You can't bring him in for a physical. You can't bring him in for a meeting. I mean, if this thing rebounds the way that some think it will, March of 2021 may be the same as March of 2020. So that's in the Cowboys' favor as well. And look, this is just a glimpse of the business reality that we're going to be dealing with. And whether and to what extent Dak Prescott recovers from this thing quickly and completely is going to be a huge factor in what the Cowboys ultimately choose to do, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to evaluate this, week by week and really kind of see, like you talked about, get the report from the doctor. How did the surgery go? They're really going to have to do their due diligence here because I would think the franchise tag is off the table at this point. There's
I don't know. Is it? I don't know.
I'm just
if he recovers, if it's a clean break and it's fixed and he's fine and there's no infections and he doesn't need any further surgeries and he's Dak Prescott that he's always been, how is it off the table?
You're right. That could possibly be. You're right. I'm jumping to conclusions by just how gruesome it looked a little bit yesterday. All right, and maybe thinking of the worst case scenario. But if there is ligament damage. If it wasn't the cleanest break there was, if it is to the point where we're getting into, April or we're getting into March and okay, yes, he's just really getting out of the cast and not capable of running or do anything like that. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I have a hard time thinking the Cowboys would do that. I would see more of a vision of this, Mike, of just them figuring out a deal of hey, let's figure something out because we really like you. We don't know how healthy you're going to be, and here's a little money because you might be the starting quarterback this year, but we're going to kind of let it go and see here, but we're going to have probably a pretty good backup here just in case. Something like that. I can envision something like that happening.
Well, but Chris, I can envision Dak Prescott continuing to take the position that he always has, right? That this is finally my shot at free agency. And if you don't believe in me, someone else will. And as Rodney Harrison said last night when we were talking about this, there'll be 5 or 6 other teams that will rush to sign Dak Prescott, that will assume the risk that it may take a year for him to get back to 100%. But then they have him beyond that. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And you know what? The very astute follower of these issues may be wondering, well, what about the transition tag? That's a way where the Cowboys can just match any offer and there's no 2 first-round picks in play. Here's the problem. Transition tag guarantees him a 20% increase, just like the franchise tag. So it's still $37.68 million, so it would be the franchise tag or nothing for the Cowboys.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.